Okay. We are live for the 15th episode of Burning Subjects. Hello, everybody.
And welcome to the Thanksgiving special.
Yes,
I'm even more excited about this one because this one is whatever top 20 Soul Survivors, and he did not put the most underrated Soul Survivor of them all on the list, aka Norfolk and Western 578.
We're going to save that for honorable mentions, all right?
Actually, Steven.
What?
Wink.
Okay, wink, whatever.
Wink.
I think that means that, I'm not going to say it.
Anyway, welcome to the Thanksgiving special, where we're going to be talking about the top 20 soul-surviving steam locomotives from all around the world. And we're going all the way from America to Britain to Germany to even Australia.
But it's mostly going to be American anyway, because Andrew doesn't know that much about steam engines from outside the United States.
Yes, I am an uncultured swine.
Well, neither do I, so... Yeah.
But anyway, the reason that this is the Thanksgiving special is because we really need to be thankful that at least one of these locomotives is around today. Because most of the locomotives on these lists either are very powerful or very infamous or just great locomotives altogether. By the way,
infamous means
famous for the wrong reasons.
The wrong reason.
Yeah, I know. Well, they're either famous or yeah.
You know, I guess a better opposite word for famous would be notorious.
Yeah. But anyway,
let's crack on with this goddamn list.
But yeah.
There's a certain engine on here that I wanted to talk about for God knows how long now.
Yeah, Jim has been waiting for this list for who knows how long. And, well, it's finally here as the Thanksgiving special. But anyway, let's go on to number 20. Southern Pacific 4449. Okay.
What?
I preferred it to be 4460. 4460 I liked a little better.
Yeah, but then again, most people will know about 44.
Why 4449?
You know the funny thing is now 4449 is at the bottom of the list that Jim requested up the ass for, and then the list that I requested up the ass for, 4449, was at the top and gave the overrated Steam Stars list. And you were freaking out over this locomotive. But we've probably already covered that. We've already covered the history of 4449.
Yeah, and to be honest, everyone knows the history. So really, we just need to let's just say briefly. 4449 is the last GS4 locomotive left in the world, and it's been operating excursion service. Let's move on to number 19.
Wait! And I like
you like the American Freedom Train livery more than its normal livery.
Yeah, I like it in Southern Pacific Daylight livery. All right, and Christopher, I'm sorry you have to put Southern Pacific 4449 on number 20, but we have to because Andrew made the list.
And plus,
right now,
gentlemen, shut the fuck up right now.
And plus,
at the end of the day, we all know which livery is superior. BNSF Black. The end.
Bravo.
As you,
But anyway, and then look, the only reason that 4449 is basically at the bottom of the list is because this thing's been either beaten to death or it's because there's millions of 4.4s left in the world. Millions, probably millions anyway, or like just thousands in general. So 4449 isn't really that different except for, of course, the beautiful streamlining. But that's really why it's on the list at all, because of the streamlining. But anyway, on to number 19. Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis, number 576.
Yes. The Northern, one that enthusiasts of this railroad would be very offended if you called it a Northern. Because, hey, you ain't allowed to call Dixie engine by Yankee name. Big fat.
They're still Northerns. But anyway.
Because Northern Pacific. Yeah, it's yes, because the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis was definitely a subsidiary of the Northern Pacific. I bet you guys didn't know that.
But anyway, on to the 576's history. They were built in 1943 for the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railroad for mixed freight and passenger service. And, of course, well, they served their duties until the late 50s, until all of them were cut up, except one, 576. Well, once it was put into the park, all of the other Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis locomotives in the world were scrapped, leaving 576 alone. It's sad about...
That's like the last surviving steam engine of the friggin'
Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railroad. It's the last steam locomotive left from the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railroad.
I would have put 576 higher on the list because of that.
Oh, no. We have a couple of other railroad survivors on this list, too. So don't worry about that. But anyway, after spending 65 years in the park along with a couple of really great fans, one of which built a small-scale replica of 576 and ran it right next to the actual locomotive. And, of course, the 576 has also become Queen of the Dixie because of a couple of songs that were written either on it or about her. But after 65 years, she was pulled out of the park and would begin a very lengthy restoration to bring her back to factory fresh condition, and of course would delight tourists all around Nashville. I mean, to be honest, we even heard it from the guys who are recertifying her boiler that she escaped the worst that she could have gone through in the park, and in the future she could be a really good locomotive. So I see high hopes for this locomotive when it comes to being back in excursion service. What do you guys think?
I think so too. Also, fun fact for those of you who have seen this Metroplate Road 765, during Steam in the Valley 2019, it wore the 576's whistle, and it sounded freaking awesome.
Yeah, a very low but thundering whistle. But either way, we've got 19 done. Now to number 18, which most of you guys actually wouldn't have expected. Number 18, South Wales Government number 3801.
What?
South Wales Government 3801.
South Wales Government Railway 3801. That's Streamlined Pacific, for those who don't know, from
Australia.
Yeah, besides, Andrew.
Yes?
Bad news.
What?
You horribly fucked up there.
What?
There are multiple surviving C-38 Pacifics.
Fuck.
It's not a sole survivor.
I'm pretty sure it's a sole survivor when it comes to the streamlined ones.
But even then, it's there's still more survivors.
There's survivors of its class, but not with the streamlining. But there actually are similar kind of instances to the 3801 on this list. Like, still,
there are 4 preserved C-38 Pacifics.
Yeah, but this one, but you know what I mean. This one is, streamlined still. And, of course, it's... But either way, this locomotive was built in 1943 and served Australia's railroads until 1975, which is actually pretty crazy.
Not all of Australia, just the New South Wales Government Railway.
Yes.
Because, you couldn't really run this thing on, say, the Victoria Railway because... different track gauges.
But you get the point.
New South Wales handle at standard gauge.
Well, you get the point, though. Either way, after its retirement, it was... I actually don't remember... I don't know much about the 3801. All I know is, well, the real reason I put it on this list is because of the locomotives that are deceased that it represents. Also known as the New Haven's I-5s.
Well, basically because this one keeps the original I-5 look, since all the New Haven I-5s in the United States were all scrapped.
Sadly, anyway. I don't know why. I don't know about you guys, but the I-5s are my favorite extinct steam locomotives.
Yeah, I mean, the streamlined C-38s did look a lot like the New Haven I-5s.
Yeah.
Even though
the
C-38s were only 462 Pacifics.
Yeah, and they were Hudsons.
464
Hudsons. Yes.
But again, it should be, friendly reminder, technically you're cheating, Andrew. Because, again, there are 4 surviving C-38s. one. Even though 3801 is the only one that's still preserved with the streamlining, it's only one of 4 C-38s in total.
I was actually planning.
I don't think all 4 have operated preservation.
Look, the funny thing is, I was actually planning to put 3977 on the list because it was still in its Greyhound livery. You know, it was.
Oh my God! I'm sorry, Andrew, but that's an even bigger noob.
Yeah. So, which one would you rather have?
3977 is the 3985, as 433 is the 475. Am I wrong?
I don't know. Anyway, since we have sort of ranted out 3801, let's go on to number 17. Also known as the locomotive that scared historians. New York Central, number 3004.
3001, actually.
Wait, was it 3001 or 3004?
You blithering idiots!
Hold on.
Because,
Yeah, 3001.
and that's also not a sole survivor.
I actually didn't know. I thought that was.
No, you blithering idiot. There are 2. Yes, it's a New York Central 482 mountain type, or Mohawk as they called them. But guess what? There are 2 of them left.
Wait, it's a mountain type? No!
Yeah.
Mohawk.
What did you say? What did you think it was?
I thought it was a northern.
No, the New York Central's known as Niagara's. Those are gone.
Yeah, so you cheated 3 times.
They were number 9 on. As I was trying to say, the Niagaras were number 9 on my top 10 extinct USC engines.
Okay, you know what? Cross both 18 and 17 off the list, so this is
Well, we gotta put something for 18 and 17. I mean, there's so many.
How about the engine that I kept mentioning to you several times already before we started recording, which is Bessemer and Lake Erie, number 643.
Ah, okay. You can talk about that one for number. Talk about that one for 18.
Okay, so let's redo that. The real number 18 then would be Bessemer and Lake Erie, number 643. Let's see. Let's see. The 643 was built in 1944 by Baldwin, and it was one of It was part of the H1 family of 210-4 Texas types for the Bessemer and Lake Erie Railroad, which were numbered 601 through 647 in total, manufactured between 1929 and 1944.
Let me change number 17 then.
They were used for, I believe, given how they were Texas types, which were basically by default a type of locomotive that would be used for heavy freight trains, they would arguably be used for that. Let's see, 643 is an H1G. So let me actually go down to see. Okay, directive effort form variables. 64-inch diameter driving wheels, boiler pressure of 250 psi, and pretty big 31 by 32-inch cylinders, though there are only 2 of them. Tractive effort, 102,106 pounds. The 643, I don't know when it was retired exactly, because I'm kind of just improvising here on the spot. But what I do know is that at some point in the 1980s, or maybe even the 1970s, I mean, at some point in the preservation era, it was undergoing some kind of mechanical refurbishment, and they were actually pretty close to finishing it. And I believe that it even moved under its own power at least once. But I'm not sure if that was actually under or under compressed air. But unfortunately, before the refurbishment was completed, I believe that the head of the project had passed away, and the locomotive essentially got landlocked in McKeesocks in Pennsylvania. But last year, I believe, it was thankfully saved once more when it was purchased by the Age of Steam Roundhouse, and the locomotive was dismantled and safely moved in pieces to their home base, which is obviously the Roundhouse itself in Sugar Creek, Ohio.
Yes, it is Sugar Creek, Ohio.
And I believe that now they're planning to rebuild it and at least give it a cosmetic refurbishment, so that at the very least it will look presentable to the public.
By the way, what was the number again?
What?
What was the number again?
Of the locomotive?
Yes.
643. Bessemer and Lake Erie, 643.
Okay.
Also, for number 17, you did.
Wait! I've already changed it for. I've already changed number 17.
What is it?
You'll see. So let's go through because we had to do some last minute changes because I fucked up. Nobody else did. It was me. So let's restate where we've gone through so far. Number 20, Southern Pacific 4449. Number 19, Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis 576. Number 18, H1G, class number 643.
From the Bessemer and Lake Erie.
Yes. And now, let's go for the proper number 17. Texas and Pacific 610.
Okay.
Okay, another 210-4.
Yes, another 210-4. And to be honest, this one is actually beautiful. So
the Texas Showdown. Well,
yes. But either way, Texas and Pacific was built by, was it Lima or what one was it?
Yeah, it was built by the Lima Locomotive Works in 1927.
For the attempt to actually build a actually good 210-4 Texas type, which, could both go at some pretty decent, well, not speeds, but haul a decent train and not have any problems. And so, well, this locomotive, along with another sister, survived into the preservation era. But because of cosmetic problems and vandalism, its sister locomotive was scrapped. And so 610 was left alone. But of course, as we all know, well, we should know, talking to you foamers out there. Anyway, we should know that 610 was one of the lucky locomotives to be pulled out of retirement and enter into the American Freedom Train, which of course was hosted by Ross Rowland and a Thai Iron Company for excursions. However, 610 didn't really go very far because of how slow it was. But of course, we can't forget the only 210-4 that has ever operated in the preservation era. To be honest, I should have put this one higher.
I just said that, 643 actually moved once under its own power.
Once. Well, the 210-4...
But again, I wasn't sure if it operated under its own head of steam or, on compressed air.
Yeah, we're not sure yet. But it is definitely confirmed that 610 has moved under her own power for longer than 2 minutes.
A day.
In fact, it operated for 5 years. Well, 5 years or 2 years? What was it?
Definitely like 5 years or something like that. But
I think so.
On the Southern Railway.
But yes, after the American Freedom Train, it was
apparently they wanted to fucking go speed.
Yeah.
So they got 2016, and then they retired 610.
But yeah, it was as Steven said, it was bought by the Southern Railway, but it was just too slow for their desires. So they brought it out of retirement. And today it's at the Texas State Railroad Museum on permanent display, where it occasionally is pulled out of the museum for outside display and is actually still being cared for briefly, but it's very unlikely that the 610 will turn her wheel under her own power again. Because 1, size, 2, expenses, and 3, the place that it's stored is basically in the middle of the woods. So if the 610 is going to move under its own power again, it would need a powerful resource to, help her get moving again. But That's
In other
really
words, it's never going to operate again.
yeah. Chances aren't it's not going to move under its own power again. So let's press F in the chat
Nobody
for the.
actually wants to use a Texas type because they'd rather use a northern for mainline excursions or something like that. It's always 280s and 484s.
Yeah.
Why not try a mountain type or something like that?
Yeah, I actually was talking with some people on Facebook, and there's a mountain type stored in the park that almost became a Ford 4 because of how big it was. And this mountain type, I would love to see in operation. This thing looks. I'll show you guys later. But anyway, on to number 16. Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe, 9005.
Oh yeah, that's a little 060 switcher that you kind of fell in love with.
Yes. The 9005 is the only Santa Fe 060 left in the entire world. And, well, it's gained a sort of reputation over the year. Like a very small one, but it's gained one at all for a switcher. And, well, of course, built in 1926, the locomotive was built for, of course, short distance, not freight service. It was built for switching around the yards. And, well, in the 50s, along with all of the other steam locomotives in the world, the locomotive was retired and put on display, while all of her 50 other sisters were cut up. 9005 was actually the lucky locomotive to be pulled out of the park and used in the Lone Rangers movie, which the locomotive was, of course, cosmetically restored into a different look and, well, of course, used for the movie multiple times. But once the movie was done,
More than likely, they probably use burning tires in the firebox or something like that to revive the smoke and have a diesel as an engine push at the end of the freight train.
Probably. But either way, after the movie, 9005 was put back, well, was bought by a different historical society and put on display in their area. But in that area, the environment was even worse to her, as it really just didn't treat her nice. And, well, luckily, over the past year or so, she's been getting a very extensive cosmetic refurbishment, which has been completed as last month, actually. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. It's not really...
Although it is an 060 yard switcher, I think it's a lot more... I think the 950 is a lot more of an excellent Soul Survivor, because it's the 940, I think, was it? What was the number again?
Yeah, 940. The Soul Surviving Santa Fe type from the Santa Fe Railroad.
Yes, because, Santa Fe types are pretty rare, too. Why didn't I put that on the list?
The ones that are operational in the States aren't even from America.
Anyway.
When are we going to get to the double barrel?
The double barrel is at, you'll just have to wait. But anyway, number 15, Chesapeake, Ohio, 490. This ugly banana Hudson was built in the 1940s, originally built as a Pacific. The locomotive was then converted.
Pacific, no less.
The locomotive was then converted into a Hudson with hideous banana streamlining. The locomotive was originally intended for passenger service, and it did sort of. Never pulled its intended passenger train, and was then limited to regular passenger service until retirement in the late 50s, when all of its other sisters were cut up except for her, and it was sent to the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Museum, where nobody cares about it anymore. Except
Nostalgia Carl. He's one of my friends. He wants to restore it. However, I would suggest putting different valve gear on it, because you know what kind of valve gear.
Yeah, it's got poppet valve gear. And to be honest, if anyone
poppet valve gear.
If anyone is daring enough to restore 490,
yeah.
What do I need to say besides don't?
Yeah, you're a madman.
You're a madman if you do it, but if you do it, at least change a lot of things about it. Like, you could keep the streamlining because, we need some more streamliners out there.
Just the valve gear is all.
Just the valve gear. Just the valve gear.
And by the way, is 614 going to be in this list?
614's basically been beaten to death, so no.
But we didn't talk about it in this series, did we?
Yeah, we've talked about it before.
Wait, who's been beaten to death?
614.
Yes, and he's already been beaten to death in retired Steam Stars lists, needless to say.
Yeah. But anyway, on to some more British locomotives now. Number 14. Great Central D11 number 506. Jim, would you like to take the mic?
Oh, hold on. Let me actually do a little bit of research on this one too, because I suggested it, but I don't know that much about the locomotive itself either.
Is it number 506?
Yes, it is 506.
Yeah. Hold on, I got the wiki page here. So number 506, named Butler Henderson, it was one of 35 Great Central 11F class 440s, later classified as D11s by the London Northeastern. The 11Fs were a slight upgrade of the 11Es, or D10s, which were known as directors. So the 11Fs were the improved directors. I believe they were all numbered 501 through 535. I believe so, anyway. Let's see. They were, they got a boiler pressure of, what is it? God damn it. Give me okay, let's see. Driving wheels. Holy shit. 6'9", so that's 81 inches.
Whoa!
On a 440. A British 440.
Why? I mean, I could see sort of because, high speed, but...
And they had 20 by 20 inch cylinders. I just can't seem to find the goddamn boiler pressure.
Okay, so these things were meant for speed.
Oh, wait, never mind, found it. 180 psi. Tractive effort, 19,645 pounds.
These were speed
Not
demons.
bad, but basically, from what I remember after having watched Chris Eden Green's Soul Slip episode on this engine, I think the Great Central initially wanted to have a batch of Atlantics and 10-wheelers, which were highly anticipated, but they proved to be very disappointing. So they backed off a bit and went for a 440. But they didn't disappoint. And they were capable of hauling, I believe, commuter passenger trains or something at like a mile a minute speed. So
60 miles an hour. 1 mile.
Holy crap!
Yeah, 60 miles an hour, a mile a minute.
To be honest, these could have been the fastest 440s in the world. I can see that.
But from what I can tell, even though those big driving wheels definitely meant speed, they were also unsuitable for hauling freight trains because, those, such a big diameter would murder freight ships.
Yeah.
Some of them actually made it into British Railways days, apparently. I think some of them at least. But yeah, number 506, Butler Henderson became the sole survivor, and it was selected to be part of the so-called National Collection, which would go to the old Railway Museum in York, which would eventually grow out into the National Railway Museum. And it's actually the only surviving Great Central passenger locomotive to be preserved. And kind of fittingly, during the late 1970s, the 1980s, and early 1990s, it also operated some passenger trains on the new Great Central Railway, as in a fairly big double-track tourist railroad or heritage railway. That's kind of in its own league compared to all the other heritage lines in the United Kingdom that are kind of like single-track branch lines. Like the Great Central is the only one that goes for double-track mainline action. But nowadays, the friggin' hold on, let me just mute the imposter here. There we go. And nowadays, the Butler Henderson is sadly out of order. So yeah, apparently it was placed on long-term. It was placed on long-term loan for display at the Barrow Hill Engine Shed near Chesterfield in 2005. And yeah, that's about it.
Well then,
That's pretty interesting.
Oh, and actually, I take the numbering back. Like only the first 11 of them were numbered in the 500 series, but then as 501 through 511. The rest were numbered 1378 through 1401.
why? You know, I'm not gonna question, but okay.
Reasons.
Wait a sec. I thought you said you muted the imposter, Jim.
Yeah, the other Simba joined.
No, you muted the wrong Simba.
Yeah, for me, there's only one Simba.
don't
That's
mute me.
Steven.
You muted Steven, Jim.
Yeah, you muted him.
I didn't mute him. I muted Simba.
Why do you want to mute
1996.
me?
You muted. You muted Jim. Jim, you muted Steven.
Steven,
Yes.
Now he speaks.
let me try again. Steven,
Yes.
I didn't mute him. I muted Simba 1996.
Because we unmuted Steven for after we
Why do you hate Simba 1996, Jim? What's your deal?
No, they don't hate me. Just didn't
I want
like-
to prevent confusion.
Well, I'm pretty sure he's here just to kind of actually I don't know why he's here. Why did you want to join?
just to join the live stream. I mean, I'm literally watching you right now on live.
What episode or what engine are we on? Are we still on the Great
I'm
Central?
watching it on YouTube.
Still on Butler Henderson for now, but I think I kind of wrapped that segment up.
Okay, we are on number 13 now, which is one that I want to go solo
All right.
on. I want to go solo on this one. Number 13.
Yeah.
044 H class number 263.
Yes, from the Southeastern and Chatham Railway,
Yes. This
which became part of the Southern Railway.
yes. This is my favorite British tank engine of all time, in my opinion anyway. But originally these
I need to make you one in Gmod.
okay. Well, this locomotive, along with its four other sisters, were built in 1905. And of course, with the flat-sided bunkers, they were basically meant for push and pull service. Sometimes, just pushing service or pulling service. But well,
The push-pull service, like they were cut in the middle of
So is it like kind of like
train?
basically
Yes.
British Shunter engine?
Like you had a bunch of carriages in front and a bunch of carriages behind.
yes, actually.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, during 1955, these locomotives were actually fitted with flare-topped bunkers from a different class of locomotives. But sadly, in January of 1964, all of the locomotives were retired, and all of them were originally deemed for the scrapyard. But 263 was the lucky one, being bought by the Bluebell Railroad, of course, and
Bluebell Railway, yeah.
which is of course known as the United Kingdom's first scenic railroad, which features their romantic steam locomotives. And the locomotive was repainted, refurbished, and brought back to a brand new condition. And well, it's been in operation ever since they acquired the locomotive, and most likely will operate for years to come. Especially, this is one of the more unique tank engines out there. And to be honest, I think this is the only tank engine on the list. I think so. Yeah, I think it is, actually.
I think so.
At least so far.
So far, anyways. But yeah, that's number 13. My favorite tank engine. Well, favorite British tank engine. I have an American tank engine, which pretty chunky. But anyway, let's go on to number 12, which Steven might want to talk about this one, actually. Number 12, Southern Pacific, number 2914.
Oh, you bitch!
Also known as the last Mastodon from the only surviving Mastodon from the Southern Pacific Railroad.
And surviving Mastodon in the States, not from the NNW.
I would have loved to say that, but of course you interrupted me, Jim. Thanks.
I'm sorry.
I don't know much about 2914 other than, I really don't know when it was built. I don't know when it was. I don't know.
Well, let me find some.
I'm gonna do some research
Me
there.
too.
Central Pacific / Southern Pacific 480s on steamlocomotive.com. Let's check the long different chart. If I remember, it was a TW.
It's a
TW8 simplified. It was actually the first of its class.
Oh.
So the
Hmm.
The 2914 was classified as a simplified TW8, with TW being 12-wheeler. That's the alternate name of the friggin'
Mastodon.
Yeah, Mastodon.
Even though Mastodon sounds
quite a few. May have actually had quite a few different classification transfers, because I see it 3 times here as TW8 cross compound, TW8 simplified, and then TW8S. But anyway, it was. I think I'm gonna go with.
So Twain went into service in 1898.
I think as a cross compound, maybe. Hold on, we actually need extra for this one.
Wait, you need extra help? Well, I know 2914. I'm looking up on Rugs Rail.
I don't think I've ever heard of this
US
engine
Rail.
before.
I
may have, but
I
I
was
don't
going there
don't
too.
remember.
Let's see.
Let's see, 29.
Yeah, indeed. Initially, it actually started out as number 2024, and it was built in 1898.
Wow.
Okay.
1998.
But yeah, the
1998.
class was initially numbered 2024 through 2033 before being renumbered to 2914 through 2923. Let's see. Initially built in 1898 as the cross compound version of the TW8. Then they got simplified in 1911, and then in 1916 they got classified as the TW8S. Let's see. Geometry relating to tractive effort. I'm going. Okay, they had 2 unbalanced cylinders when they started out in the cross compound version. Let's see. When they started out, they had a boiler pressure of 200 psi, driving wheels of 55 inches in diameter, one 23 by 32 inch cylinder, and one 35 by 32 inch cylinder, resulting in a tractive effort of 36,543 pounds.
Not bad.
Wow, that's
Then
actually
when they got simplified, they obviously got rid of the friggin' compound system. And they reduced the boiler pressure to 180 psi,
Aw.
and they gave them slightly smaller driving wheels of 54 inches and a pair of 21 by 32 inch cylinders, the same that you would find on the Union Pacific's Jobelman Challengers. Big Boy's little brother. That increased the tractive effort to 39,984 pounds.
Better.
And then when they got reclassified into the TW8s, they decided to up the boiler pressure again, but this time hit a nice middle ground of 190 psi, but the cylinders and the driving wheels remained the same as on the TWH simplified version, and that jacked up the trek diff effort to 42,205 pounds.
Holy crap! I just realized that we're only like barely even halfway through this list, and we're gonna be here for a while.
I know.
Here for a while, so that's good.
Wow.
Let's make it a big super episode.
Yes.
It deserves to be.
Yes.
On 1955, the 2914 was retired from service and was donated to Kern County. Displayed at the Pioneer Village at the Kern County Museum in Bakersfield.
As in Bakersfield, California?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you realize what you just said, Michael?
Yeah, I know.
What did you say?
You accidentally said
Okay, we get it, all right?
Okay, let me continue with this one.
Yeah, anyway.
But they actually had to lie down a special railroad track, or tracks were laid off of a line that still runs to the south of the museum. So that's actually kind of neat.
Shit, I'm completely lost. What the hell are we talking about?
We're talking about
now?
2914.
We're talking about Southern Pacific 2914. We kind of got carried away regarding its tractive effort because it actually had 3 different tractive effort outputs throughout its career, because it got a pair of big rebuilds that led to several reclassifications.
Well,
Did it lead to an increase or a decrease?
Both led to a gradual increase of the tractive effort.
Like what? 2 pounds?
No,
10 pounds?
like several thousand. Several thousands of pounds.
not bad.
Also, I just found a weird picture of 2102 with the headlight recessed into the smoke box door.
That's
DNA
weird.
flashbacks.
But anyway, can we go on?
That was supposed to be alien music, not like I'm trying to be, just creepy sci-fi music, because DNH Northerns kind of look like aliens.
Uh,
Yeah, let's
So
go
we-
to the next one.
yeah, next.
All right.
What's next?
I need to clear my throat. Glitch.
Is there going to be a double bill or not?
There is going to be double bill. I just need to find a picture because I remember. Anyway,
Yes.
anyway. Durango and Silverton narrow gauge railroad. Well, not narrow gauge. Durango and
Oh,
Silverton.
my favorite.
Durango and Silverton, number 683. The last standard gauge. Durango and Silverton locomotive in the world. Which, yes, it's a Connie, but remember, the rest of these locomotives were converted from standard gauge to narrow gauge.
Andrew, I think you made an error. It's not part of Durango and Silverton. It's part of the Colorado Railroad Museum.
It's part of the Colorado Railroad Museum, but I meant the railroad that it was
You mean
for.
the Denver and Rio Grande Western,
Yeah.
or the Rio Grande?
Yeah, I knew what Andrew was
Yes.
talking about.
Yes,
I
am,
honestly don't give a shit about.
I'm a mess this
any
week.
narrow gauge locomotives other than Tweetsy. So honestly, this is kind of probably going to be boring, even though it's standard gauge.
Yeah. But anyway,
No, Stephen, because again, this is the only surviving standard gauge Rio Grande locomotive.
yeah, the only. And the funny thing is, this is probably the only locomotive I've actually seen in person on this list. And to be honest, I actually don't remember seeing it. That's
Let
the
me
weird.
try to look it up again.
But anyway, 683.
I really want to see a Durango or Colorado steam locomotive in person.
The 683, of course, was lucky, just really lucky, because all of its other siblings were converted from standard gauge 280s because of the narrow gauge.
Narrow gauge.
Yeah, they were converted
Yeah.
from 280 standard gauge locomotives to narrow gauge 282 Mikados. And, well, of course, we have hundreds of the Mikados around, but we don't have any standard gauge locomotives. So 683 is quite the change.
That's true.
And, of course, over the years, this locomotive has been cosmetically restored quite a lot. But it is showing that they have cared for this locomotive, since, of course, as I said, it's a sole survivor.
Do you know the classification of it?
No, I do not know the classification of it.
Because I'm trying to look it up on Steam Locomotive.
I mean, thank God that engine's still around today.
We just needed at least one standard gauge.
K94.
K-
What?
It's a K94 class 280 or something.
K94. Okay.
What?
K94. Let me.
What the fuck are you laughing about?
What are you laughing?
What are you laughing at? What was that?
Oh my god.
You actually
What are you laughing about?
What was the actual class?
Wait, what?
You actually thought a K94 was a thing.
Oh,
It
no!
in my head.
What, Steven? You son of a bitch.
He faked it!
You called my mom a bitch. Why'd you call my mom?
Okay, not,
Oh my
you
God.
son of a fucking bitch.
You called my mom a fucking bitch.
I don't think we should.
So in other words, you decided to break us because you don't really like consolidations.
Except for a 722 and the S160s, those are love and life.
What about
What
70?
about 630?
Then again, I have seen that engine in person, and it's amazing.
What about 769, huh?
I think I've seen pictures on it. It's a very beautiful looking locomotive.
Can we just move on to the next one, please?
Yeah, let's just move on to the next one because
Andrew, what are you doing?
what am I doing?
You actually thought that the K94 was a thing.
We'll get you next time, Steven.
We're gonna get you
I mean, it
next.
was only a mistake.
We're gonna get you, Steven.
You actually fell for it.
We're gonna get you next time, Steven. We're gonna get you.
Oh, wait, hold on.
We're gonna get you next time, boy.
But it's just really funny.
Anyway,
I think I got
Dr.
the perfect
Pepper on stream.
way to shut you up.
well, anyway, can we actually go into number 10 now?
Yes.
Number
Is
10.
there going to be a double bill at the top 10 or 5?
Yes, actually, the double bill is right here. Actually, number 10.
Yes.
Wabash number 534 and Wabash number 573.
Oh, baby.
Both of the-
Wabash theme.
Both of these locomotives are the only two steam locomotives left in the entire world from the Wabash Railroad, of course.
One is an 060 switcher, the other is a 260 mogul.
Yep.
Yeah.
I only know
Yeah.
and that 570, and I only know that 573 is on display at.
Don't talk about 534 though. I want to talk about 534.
I only know that the Wabash 573 is on display at the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, Missouri.
And it has been for the last 70 years.
Yeah.
The mogul.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm
But
actually curious now.
But I wanted to talk about 534 the most because 534 has been gaining a lot of attention lately because, of course, as I said, it's only one of two Wabash steam locomotives left in the world. This one was left in the park for about 50 years. But thanks to the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society, and I quote, 534 will languish no more as a thorough inspection is conducted on her boiler, and most likely 534 might return to service within the next 10 years.
Yes.
I just hope they God will be back.
And on the other hand, Wabash 573 is a Class F4 260 mogul built in 1899 by the Rhode Island Locomotive Works.
1899.
Built in 1899.
Nice.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
old.
Trying to look it up myself.
Yeah. Mainly it was used for freight service on the Wabash Railroad.
I mean, yeah, that'd probably be true.
Let me guess, you're reading this from where? Locomotive Wiki?
Well, I'm looking at the locomotive fandom thing.
Yeah, it's arguably one of the least reliable sources out there, if I'm being
Yeah. But later on, it was rebuilt in 1915
It's like
to
using
a F5
Wikipedia.
locomotive. Unfortunately, though, after diesel replaced the steamers, Wabash 570P was donated to the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, Missouri in 1955. And today, it's the only surviving 260 mogul of the Wabash.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, luckily, we're going to have at least one Wabash Cannonball back. If you get the reference to the song.
Yes.
Anyway.
Kelson, hold on. What the hell?
I don't. I'm sorry, man.
Let me see here. Let me see what's in memes.
But anyway, let's go on to number 9, which is
Number 9.
Why, Jim? Why?
what?
I just had to shut you up.
What?
What?
Because, a little bit of payback for the K94 prank.
Wait, what?
Oh my God! Can we just move on to fucking number 9? I'm starting to get
No!
Hold on, what were we talking about?
We were on number 9.
We're going on number 9.
Number 9.
Oh, basically Simba.
Number 9.
Oh
Look,
my God!
look, can we do this or what?
I hate, adult Simba in The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, which is why I can't stand just looking at pictures of adult Simba.
Oh, come on.
Moving on.
Is it really that?
Okay, we'll move on to number 9. What's number 9?
This is
Number-
to number 9.
Number 9 is Union Pacific 9000.
Sick.
Yes.
Ooh.
We all know.
That's a good one. I love that one.
Okay, I'm taking the microphone.
Oh, okay.
Totally every steamer expert knows that engine.
Anyway,
The thing snoring is actually making me gag.
everyone, let Jim take the mic.
Up.
Jim, take
Oh
the
my!
mic.
All right, kick Steven out if he's gonna be annoying.
What was that
So-
line of?
9,000. When it was built, it was fucking unique. No other locomotive like it had ever existed in the United States. But I guess you could call it an overgrown design. Because the whole shtick with this locomotive was the fact that it was a triple cylinder engine and it utilized the Gresley's conjugated valve gear, which he had made famous on the London and Northeastern in the United Kingdom. And so this valve gear made its way to the United States. Granted, it was also used on the slightly smaller 88 class 410-2 Overland types, but it hadn't been tried before with a locomotive with 12 driving wheels. So yeah. 9000s were built between 1926 and 1930. 88 of them were made, numbered 9000 through 9087, at least initially. Attractive effort. 67-inch diameter driving wheels. Boiler pressure of 220 psi. Holy crap, apparently it was it looks like it's a compound locomotive too. Oh, God damn it. They did that whole different stroke thing. So it looks like all the cylinders have the same bore of 27 inches, but whereas the external cylinders had at the stem basically had a stroke of 32 inches, the internal cylinder had a stroke of 31 inches. And that resulted in an attractive effort of 96,646 pounds.
Whoa!
Yeah, but again, I'm actually taken by surprise that it's a compound locomotive, and I don't really like that it's that they did the whole different stroke thing.
But holy,
I thought all the cylinders were the exact same size.
can we take a moment to realize?
Why post that picture of it without the smoke box air compressors? It looks awkward and creepy looking.
Actually, I like it.
I kind of like it.
I like it.
Needless to say, the 9000s were actually fairly successful.
Except for how big they were, of course.
Naturally, they did have a couple of inherent issues.
One.
Number one, maintenance of the third cylinder. Because, engine bed, cast steel frame with cylinders already attached to it. That is going to cause a few friggin' problems.
And two, it's a rigid frame locomotive.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But,
rigid frame, so that means that, they actually work pretty decently on the flatlands, but they work terribly in mountain country.
Yeah.
So, if you just get them to the flatlands, nothing really, no real problems. You're fine.
Well,
I'm sorry I have to bring this up, but I have to play this beam.
Over 9,000!
Okay.
Brian Drummond approved.
What the fuck are we talking about again? Something about 9,000.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Apparently 9,000 was also used for a couple of excursions, if I remember correctly.
What?
Only literally a couple before it was, officially retired from the UP in, 1956 or something?
So wait, does that mean that it's technically a retired Steam Excursion Star?
Yes.
Kinda, sorta, but needless to say, I think it also holds a fairly unique distinction for actually steaming to its new home, which is the Real Giants Train Museum in Pomona, California.
It
under
moved.
Its own power.
It went there under its own power?
Apparently.
That's amazing.
I think it did.
That's amazing.
Well, why the fuck didn't they film that?
That would have been awesome.
I think there's at least a photograph of it.
Oh, I really wish we could see that.
Things like that. They're too busy filming JFK talking about going to the moon.
Anyway.
Well, that is actually pretty big and tremendous progress too. But
anyway,
maybe big for the whole world. But yeah.
But anyway,
it is actually. It looks like it's going through a canyon, though. So that's actually kind of amazing that it was able to, go on that track. But, look, it's using the left-hand track, so I guess they took that one there because of that. The curve was probably more gentle to accommodate the rigid wheelbase.
Well, let's go on to number 8, which is actually another double whammy. Number 8.
Yeah. I'm listening.
Norfolk and Western Y6A, number 2156, and Norfolk and Western 462. Number 5. You gotta say the number. 578. Yeah!
Thank fucking God you put it on there. Thank fucking God, about time.
Okay.
Steven, stop jerking off, please.
Yeah.
It's November, Steve.
That is not masturbating. That is clearly clapping.
It's clapping like this.
Okay.
Anyway.
Let's continue.
I've got a nosebleed.
Yeah, but anyway, Steven, you'll talk about 578.
And can I talk about 2156?
You and Steven can both talk about 2156.
All right. Well, I'll start talking about the Norfolk and Western 2156. And hold on.
Okay, you'll start, and then Jim will talk about its life after operation.
Okay. Yes. All right. Anyway, sorry. Anyways, back to the Y6. Let's get started. Norfolk and Western 2156 is the sole surviving Y6A locomotive of the Norfolk and Western Railway. It was a 2882 Mallet locomotive built in 1942 at the Roanoke Shops in Roanoke, Virginia, as a member of the Norfolk and Western Y6A class. And it's the strongest pulling extant steam locomotive in the world. It was retired from service in July of 1959 and was owned by the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, Missouri. But during 2015, the 2156 would move again when it would be visiting the Virginia Museum of Transportation to reunite with the 2 other sole surviving Norfolk and Western steam engines, which are hopefully on this list, 611 and 1218.
Gonna tell you right now, 611 isn't on the list. Sorry.
Fuck.
Can I? Or no? It's
Also, important detail, very important detail. It didn't move there under its own power,
Yeah,
and chances are high that it won't be refurbished because of a
huge.
little issue that we already addressed once before. Cracked frame.
And 2, it's huge.
Cracked frame.
Cracked. Anyway.
But anyway,
it went back there. It went back to the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis this year, and that's about 2156, I guess.
And now,
like that.
Steven.
now to talk about
It did return to St. Louis. And
Well,
there are a lot of people, please refurbish it to working order. I just literally stated the one reason why it probably won't be refurbished to working order, you dipstick.
no, don't pull that probably shit. It's definitely. Because what we're going to do is restore like 80,000 Connies and 80,000 Northerns.
anyway.
You
Steven.
wanted to talk about a little Pacific that could make you orgasm like you wouldn't believe. It will cause a national flood.
Well,
Yeah.
anyway.
It is. This next one is. It's not a product of the NNW, but actually a product of the American Locomotive Company. Let me see. When was it built? When was it built again? Hold on, let me see here. I can't even find it.
By the way, I need to go take a piss, so Steven, take the mic.
Let me see.
I think I'm going to take another drink. I'll be right back.
It was okay. So Norfolk and Western 578 is the sole survivor of the E2A class 462 Pacifics built for the Norfolk and Western. This one was built by Alco in March of 1910. Okay, so the engine, including its tenor, is 90 feet 9 inches, and let me see here. And it has 70-inch drivers, and let me see here. So this engine was actually the out of all the NNW Steam Stars to operate in the preservation era. It started operating there in 1959. And it operated until 1966 when its crew time expired. And then after routine repairs were made, it continued operating there until like 1973 when it was taken out of service due to a broken spring hanger. And it's been a display piece ever since then. But honestly, the 578, no one really gives a shit about this. I mean, when people think of Norfolk and Western, they usually think of freaking 475 or 611 or 1218. Oh, especially 611, my God. But, you know, I mean, 578 stands out because, like I said before, it was the first steam locomotive from the Norfolk and Western to operate in the preservation era. Unless in excursion service, anyway.
Yeah.
I just got finished talking about 578.
And Andrew, can I please mention 611 in the honorable mentions list?
Well, just mention it like quickly, you know?
No, we're not going to do it. No, we'll do it in the honorable mentions when we go to it before number 1.
Yeah, I know. At honorable mentions, we'll, just say the number, the railroad, and then, keep going through the different honorable mentions, and then we'll go to number 1. But anyway, number 7.
Yeah.
And Jim, you might want to introduce this locomotive.
Oh. Of all the fucking coincidences to play Gmod and spawn this engine out.
Oh, I already know what it is. It's a German locomotive I know absolutely nothing about.
Yes, Jim,
So,
introduce it as number 7.
The locomotive that I'm going to be talking about now comes to you from West Germany.
Well, introduce the locomotive. Well, Number 7 is
Number 7 is the DB 65018. And you're probably wondering, that's just a lame combination of letters and words.
no.
Hear me out. In the 1950s, the Deutsche Bundesbahn, which was the new nationalized railroad that served basically the German Federation, so, to put it bluntly, capitalist West Germany, they actually started a so-called Neubau program where they would build brand new steam locomotives to, further help ease their transition to diesel. 5 new classes were basically developed, but only one of them was really produced. That was only put into serious mass production, and it wasn't even the Class 65s. But basically, the 65s, they were 284 Berkshire type tank engines. They were basically meant for both mixed traffic, so passenger and freight service on on fairly lightly laid trackage.
Yeah.
And I actually had the steam locomotive page up here real quick, but I actually got rid of it, goddammit, so I'm looking it up again. They were all manufactured by Krauss Maffei in Munich, or München as the Germans would call it, which by that point was obviously in West Germany as opposed to communist East Germany on the other side of the border.
Hey, who's that talking in the background?
There were only 18 of them, numbered 65001 through 65018. So the one that we're mentioning right now is the last one to be built and the only one to be preserved. There were various minor differences as they were actually built in 3 small batches, but they were all still classified as the same thing. In terms of tractive effort, you're going to get both metric and imperial measurements for the ingredients. The driving wheels were 1,500 millimeters or 59.1 inches in diameter. Boiler pressure was 14 bar or a kilopascal. Or 203.1 inches, 203.1 pounds per square inch. And the cylinders were 570 by 660 millimeter, or 22.44 by 25.98 inches. And I seem to be falling into a little bit of a pattern where it would seem that, 660 millimeters or 25.98 inches is basically like the standard piston stroke on German steam locomotives that were developed since the so-called Einheits program of the Deutsche Reichsbahn Gesellschaft, the nationalized railroad that served all of Germany between both world wars. Basically, the Neubau program was basically, the West German refinement of it. Even though surprisingly, they actually looked more vintage because the tenders and the water tanks were kind of rounded, and the smokestacks actually looked a little bit British too, with flares near the top. But unfortunately, the Class 65 tank engines didn't have a very long career. Already by 1968, the first example was already cut up for scrap. So yeah, that's actually quite a shocker. The 65018 was initially preserved to be part of the West German Steam Locomotive Museum in Neumarkt, Biersberg. But then in 1980, it actually caught the interest of the Steam Museum that I actually live fairly close to. Pardon a little bit of Dutch here. The museum in question is called the Stoomstichting Nederland, roughly translated into English as Steam Society Netherlands, though Steam Foundation Netherlands would be more accurate. But basically, you can abbreviate it to SSN. Because by that time, they were actually looking for a powerful but relatively light and compact locomotive to work, on branch lines or, bits of mainline track with lightly laid trackage. So the Class 65 tank engine was actually a perfect candidate for that. So they got into some negotiations with with the higher management of the Steam Museum at Neue Mark Meersberg, and they were allowed to loan the locomotive, so pay for it while borrowing it for 5 years. They refurbished it in that time, and they liked it so much that they managed to squeeze another 5-year loan out of it. And then, to put it a bit foully for joke reasons, they stole it. But basically, officially, they didn't really steal it. That's just a savage joke. They actually ended up buying the locomotive from the museum. And since 1990, the 65018 has been, part of the SSN's collection. And, it's actually, and the reason why I say that they stole it is because it was preserved for being the sole survivor of its class. And we're talking, a pretty versatile 284 Berkshire-type tank engine. Like, the only survivor of its kind, and, part of, the Deutsche Bundesbahn's Nobel program, and it's preserved in the Netherlands. I didn't mention the city that the SSN resides in. That will be Rotterdam. But in 2018, it was basically retired after several overhauls and different stints. It was retired because there was no foreseeable operational future with it anymore for the SSN. But fortunately, the SSN was able to work out a deal with the VSM, which is a tourist railroad operating between the towns of Apeldoorn and Dieren, with their main shed and station in the small village of Beekbergen. And basically, the VSM is allowed to loan the Class 65. They're basically allowed to loan the 65018 for a period of 10 years themselves. And during that, they have already given it quite a thorough refurbishment to actually make it, mechanically speaking, a bit more accurate to how it was when it was first built. To make it less suitable for operating on the main line. Because the SSN is the kind of steam museum that doesn't have its own stretch of railroad. They're basically like an excursion company. They only do mainline trips. And even though it may seem a bit weird to put a tank engine on the main line, the Class 65s were actually pretty good for it because they were capable of going 85 kilometers per hour, or just about 53 miles per hour, both forward and backwards. 53 miles per hour on a tank engine. Granted, you had a limited supply of fuel and water, so there's that to look out for. But during its mainline trips, towards the end, it did actually get a bit of help in the form of former postal carriage that was converted into something of an auxiliary water tender. And basically, though, to put it more accurately, that became a whole support coach, complete with a little bit of seating and a small workshop.
So wait, is that really it?
Yeah, that's about it.
We need Dan for the next one.
I know. Wait a minute. I think I know what will attract him. Hold on. I have found the steam locomotive that is a sole surviving 464 non-streamlined. I know, but we need to get him his attention, and I know how to do it. Let me just go to Google and the picture of it.
Well, I actually messaged him privately.
No, send him a fucking green clock hill nut from that too.
Wait, what number is this anyway?
This is number 6.
Goddamn, how long have we been streaming?
An hour and 14 minutes, and we got 14. We got 4 people. So I guess I might as well read what we got 4 people.
Oh my goodness.
right.
But look in U.S. locomotives what I found.
Oh boy.
It's more than likely photoshopped, but here.
Hold on, let me actually put in my earplugs because my mom's going to bed.
If you look
What
on
is
the
this in U.S. locomotives?
what is this?
Oh no! Oh, I actually kind of like that.
You disgust me.
Andrew, is it that I actually kind of want to build something like that in Gmod?
This is the reason I hate the triplex.
Tender trucks. This has tender booster trucks, I think.
Yes, it does.
No.
That's a Chad mountain type. Why didn't the Missouri Pacific preserve any? Oh, but they could preserve Connie's up the ass because
They only preserved. They preserved a 10-wheeler, 635.
Well,
which honestly is just something that I can use as a substitute for fleet medicine because little engines are not that interesting and not as interesting as the mountain types. Why were so many interesting classes scrapped?
well, Andrew, doesn't it count that you cheated 3 times since you put 44, 49 in number 20, or no?
No.
I wouldn't necessarily say that 4449 was a case of cheating. Yes, it's one of 2 surviving GS class Northerns.
It's a wait, no, Jim.
4449 is a GS4, where the other one, 4460, is the pioneering GS6.
Yeah.
We shouldn't forget that.
Yeah.
I tried messaging Jim, and I mean Dan, but he's not even on. I even tried blowing it.
14.
I'm gonna mention the locomotive that I think you want to talk about, right?
Yeah, just say the locomotive, and if Dan comes back, we'll talk about it. If Dan joins, we'll talk
I
about it.
just messaged him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I messaged probably Canadian Pacific 2816.
Yep, it is.
Dan, if you can hear us, please join us now because we're going to talk about Canadian Pacific 2816, the non-streamlined Hudson.
Yeah!
Apparently everybody wants you to talk about the Empress because we're talking about
Soul Survivors.
Yes.
fire away, Dan. Let's get this out of the way.
All right.
Okay, first of all, 2816 isn't really a Soul Survivor,
Well,
but
Well, yeah, we
Just
kind of
like
addressed that.
just half Soul Survivor.
Semi-Soul Survivor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, she's actually one of 5 surviving Hudson CPUs to run.
yes, but this is the only one that.
wasn't it the only, Dan, small question, wasn't it the only H1B?
Well, she's the only surviving standard Hudson. The other 4 are Royal Hudsons.
Yeah, but wasn't she the only H1B to be preserved?
Yeah, and
Yes.
the only surviving one not to be streamlined. Anyway,
You also missed me talking about the Class 65.
all right, I'll tell you a story. So, it was built in December 1930 by the Montreal Locomotive Works. She mainly pulled trains out of Calgary all the way to Montreal, Quebec. Mainly high priority express trains for Canadian Pacific, as she was tended to. Though she did pull some freight. At one time during her career, she suffered an overheating bearing, which was a big ouchie. And it took it a year for the engine to be repaired. But she was brought back into service and continued operating. She was retired. She after running at least a few million miles, I forgot what was the exact numbers. She made her final run in 1961, I believe, the same year when the age of steam in Canada was officially over. Around that time, 2816 was then sold to F. Nelson Blount for a Steamtown USA collection in Bellows Falls, Vermont. Too late to save a New York Central Hudson, Blount bought 2816, which was still available. Blount did have high hopes to eventually operate 2816 on his Green Mountain Railroad, but the trestles in Vermont were like too light for the likes of a Hudson.
There were no Connies.
No, not really Connies, because I mean they also had other engines. They had a Mogul. Steamtown had like a Mogul, and multiple Pacifics too. So I think that was enough.
Oh God.
So for almost 40 years, 2816 sat on static display in the various Steamtown at the various Steamtown locations until in 1991, when CP bought the locomotive.
Dan?
What?
Actually, it doesn't say 1991. It's September 1998. The CP purchased 2016.
Thank you.
Because
I messed it up.
Because after hearing availability from the crews who were running the Royal Hudson 2860.
Now here's the thing. Let me give you the story. So Al Broadfoot, which at the time he was the head of the BC Rail steam excursions, he was looking for a lubricator for 2860. In regarding it, he asked the owner of Steamtown at the time, which was not Blount, which was after Blount. He asked if they could borrow parts off of 2816, and the CEO actually followed up by saying, "How would you like the whole engine?" And 2816 was later then passed on to the head of Canadian Pacific, which they said they'd like to have it. And 2816 was moved to North Vancouver for a 3-year-long restoration. And this was the most extensive steam locomotive restoration ever accomplished in Canada.
Wow.
In 2001, Canadian Pacific completed the restoration of the locomotive, and it began its 5-day run from Vancouver, British Columbia to Calgary, Alberta, where the engine would be later nicknamed the Empress after Canadian Pacific's ocean liners, which were the Empress class, like Empress of Ireland, Empress of Britain, all that stuff. And she would go on to be a very popular engine, running all over Canadian Pacific, even going down to the
United States.
Yeah, where she met up with Milwaukee 261.
Yes.
She even met up with other engines back in Canada, like the Kamloops Heritage Railway's 2141. And she did that for a few years until in 2011, I think.
No, 2012.
No. You're probably thinking of something else. In 2011, 2816 she actually starred in her own movie, Rocky Mountain Express, directed by Stephen Lowe.
Wow.
And
I didn't even know that.
As a guy who watched Rocky Mountain Express, it is such a gorgeous movie, and I love the shots they did on the locomotive. And pretty much Rocky Mountain Express is all about the story of the construction of Canadian Pacific through the mountains.
Ironically, with a
yeah.
that was 20
So, however, in 2012, Canadian Pacific CEO, I forgot what was his name, but he stepped out.
Fred Green?
Yeah, Fred Green. He stepped down and came in E. Hunter Harrison.
Fuck that motherfucker to the ground.
You don't need to spoil the whole thing. He never had an interest in running steam excursions, so he pretty much abolished the whole steam program. And for the rest of the few years with Harrison coming in, aside from 2816 being pulled from service, he also basically screwed up CP in general. Like, they ruined their reputation. They've Harrison screwed CP up a lot.
Yeah.
So, however, in recent years, I forgot what year exactly, but Harrison stepped down and became leader of CSX, which he would later pass away, which is rather unfortunate.
And Keith Creel will take over CP.
Yeah, heavy quotes with unfortunate.
I'd clap, but for some reason, my arm is stuck in something.
That's okay.
That's a bitch, but okay.
But if you thought 2020 was bad, then think again.
No need to spoil it. I'll take care of the wheel. So, in recent years, with Keith Creel in charge, CP has actually gained. They've gained back some customers that CP has lost with Harrison, and they've slowly brought back their reputation. In 2019, CP came out with new heritage units, with the Phase 1 paint schemes, along with the military units for Remembrance Day last year. And if you thought this would get any better, for the first time in around November of 2020, 2816 was found running again for the first time in 8 years.
What?
And yeah, it surprisingly came from a TikTok video. Apparently she was fired up, and CP actually confirmed that the engine was indeed running. However, that isn't to say the engine is going to go out for more excursions. CP confirmed that the engine is only going to be fired up for a one-time only virtual holiday train. And although it's rather unfortunate, we can understand why. And 2816 is just there just to cheer people up from an event like this in 2020.
I mean,
because this year is such a depressing fall.
More than likely, if anything, it's more than likely going to be next year or the year after. They're going to actually do excursions.
Well, you never know. I mean, you wouldn't put all that effort just to use it once, and that'll be it. But yeah, it's CP. It's their engine. We're not allowed to judge them. So, yeah. At the time being, let's all thank the crew members of Canadian Pacific for
bringing her back.
To bring her back, even if it was just once, and also just happy to see her out.
Yeah,
and also she and CP, one of the CP Heritage Program members, Adam Meeks, he announced that he would like to request anyone who is in Calgary, Alberta, or ever is going to see the engine, please stay away from Ogden Yard to avoid spread of COVID. So please take your time, and thank you, Canadian Pacific, for bringing it.
Yes.
If it was just once.
Yes, and we hope to see.
And that, kids, is the story of 2816. And
well,
with that,
this isn't...
I shall vanish to hell.
And he's gone. Oh!
He just came down. It's like we summoned him. We asked, please, God, bless Dan upon us, and then he just came. He's like, hi.
Yeah.
And then Dan just comes in. He's just like, hi.
Yeah, but thank you, Canadian Pacific, for bringing back 2816, and we hope to see her in an excursion service in the next few years.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
But now it's time for the top 5 steam engines on this list.
Yes.
Yay.
Number 5. The Skookum. The Skookum. Which is... Well, most people call it the Skookum, even though it has a number 7. The Skookum is a 2442 compound articulated logging locomotive built in 1903. And the locomotive, of course, spent quite a while as a logging locomotive until it had an accident in which the locomotive fell off a bridge and into the river. Into a river in which it was just abandoned there.
I
And
can picture that.
because the locomotive, was abandoned, they just left it there. But the original plan for all of these 2442s was for all of them to be scrapped. But Skookum, because of its predicament, was luckier. Well, luckier. Because, just as I said, it went into a river. So,
In Lego City.
that's right.
Start the rescue crane.
Hey!
Is that a fucking dead meme already?
I guess.
Yes, I think
I
so.
hope not.
I don't know. But anyway, let's go on to the Skookum. Either way, after what seemed like 70 years of being in a river, Rick Morty, the locomotive was pulled out of the river and fully restored to operation. And honestly, I think this is one of the most impressive restorations I have ever heard of. Because, I mean, one, it's in the river for 70 years, and you pull it out and you completely restore it. I mean, have you guys ever seen those locomotives that were thrown into the river because, they didn't need them anymore and they pulled them out and they just...
Yeah, I've seen them in movies.
Yeah, but restore one to operation? Now that's another level up.
Yeah.
And
Speaking of, I think that we should actually take 3254 to the harbor and dump it in the sea, and then it can become a coral reef, like that episode of Grand Tour.
to be honest, I
Come
think...
on, let's not do this.
That's too savage.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Anyway, let's go back to the Skookum.
Just let it sit there and bask in its evil glory.
After all of its 25 sisters were cut up, the Skookum, number 7, was the last 2442 compound locomotive left in the entire world. Well, the last 2442 in the entire world. And, of course, it's lucky to have survived all those years. And, nowadays, after its extensive overhaul and restoration, the locomotive will be hauling excursions along the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad. Which, quite frankly, most people need to actually know how much of a sole survivor this really is. I mean,
Yeah.
1, it's a compound. 2, it's, wheel arrangement. That wheel arrangement was rare to begin with. But
Because under normal circumstances, you could have just as easily made it a Mikado.
yeah,
Under normal circumstances.
under normal...
Have I become such a judgmental prick about these steam engines and their wheel arrangements? I mean, really.
But anyway, the Skookum was really a quick one to talk about, since it was a pretty straightforward career, but it's really how it is today that makes it shine. It's,
Yeah.
as I said before, and I'll say it again. I said it, and I'll say it again. Last 2442 left in the world. Anyway, on to number 4, which ironically was the number of this locomotive at some point. Number 4, Reading Camelback 1187, also known as Strasbourg number 4. You should have seen this coming. You really should have.
I actually did kind of see it coming.
Exactly.
I love Reading locomotive.
And, of course, Camelbacks. But there's something you probably didn't know. This locomotive is the last 040 standard gauge tender engine left in America. Probably didn't know that, did you?
Well, at least built as a standard gauge tender engine. There was the Monticello Railway Museum number 1, but that was originally built as a saddle tank, and then the Monticello Railway Museum just modified it with a tender.
That doesn't count because it still has saddle tanks. But anyway, this is probably the smallest locomotive on the list. And, it's just a pretty runty little fella. If you don't know what a Camelback is basically a locomotive that Well, it's a pretty crazy idea. So, to put it simply, the cab, instead of being put on the back of the locomotive, is put in the center. So the idea originated because Reading locomotives, when they were built originally, had fireboxes that were as wide, very wide, to accommodate the kind of coal that they burnt, which was anthracite coal, which burnt much slower than the more common bituminous coal that most coal-fired steam locomotives use. And so, when they built certain locomotives, like for switching purposes, the cabs either were had to be mounted in a very particular way on the back, or they just wouldn't put a cab at all. But they would put a tiny cab for the fireman and the engineer's cab right there on the middle. These locomotives were perfect for switching service, but not much.
Then why would they use? But why would they use for switching service?
Oh, hello, Crystal.
Oh, hello.
Jordan, what's up?
Well, they were perfect for switching service because, one, with the cab in the middle, you could actually see in front of the boiler relatively easily. And two, when you were going in reverse, you could still see behind you perfectly. So, yeah. You know those diesel locomotives that have the cab directly in the middle? That's basically that's basically the case with the Camelback.
Oh yeah, them like the Erie L1 when it was a Camelback.
I guess, but anyway. Now onto the
wait. That's what people always mean when they fucking say Camelback.
But anyway, onto the history of this tiny Camelback. Reading 1187 was built in 1902 by the Baldwin.
No, 1903.
1904.
1903 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works of Philadelphia, and classified as an A4B. By the way, don't confuse it with the LNER A4s, because one, and I'm going to quote Jim's video for this, well, not Jim's, Steven's video for this, one is a glorious, streamlined Pacific known for frequently cracking the 100-mile-an-hour barrier, and the other is just no for your yard switcher. Anyway, the A4B, well, about 50 of them were built, and, well, 1187 is, of course, the only one to survive. But it took the sole survivor status came to a new heights because of its wheel arrangement and its Camelback sort of look. Because currently today, there are only 4 Camelbacks left in the entire world, and 1187...
Only 3.
I thought there were
3 in the United States. I don't know if any that exist elsewhere.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's 4. There's
some generic European locomotive somewhere, or Asian, or Australian, I think.
But anyway, 1187 served the Reading and Philadelphia Railroad for about 60 years as a yard switcher, which really this locomotive was absolutely perfect for. You know, not too big, not too small, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, the cab being in the middle allowed switching service to be much easier. But of course, because of the steam era slowly ending, they sold the little Camelback to the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company, and well, of course, spent another 5 or 10 years as a switcher again, until the third purchase, which is what it's most known for, by the Strasburg Railroad, in which it moved all the way from the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company to Strasburg under its own power. Such a tiny engine going all the way, basically, on a little adventure of some sort, like you see in those little cartoons.
But still in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, still in the state of Pennsylvania. But the locomotive arrived at Strasburg under its own power, and of course, as I became the first locomotive to arrive at Strasburg under its own power. Under the cover of darkness, the locomotive went into the sheds and, of course, was put into a new livery for the Strasburg Railroad. But when it was put into excursion service, it didn't do a very good job. But it was... Jordan, can you please... Thank you.
He left.
Oh. But anyway... The locomotive didn't really do a particularly good job for the Strasburg Railroad because, and I quote, the The locomotive was very difficult to fire using bituminous coal, but as I said earlier, it burnt anthracite coal, and using the wrong kind of coal can dramatically decrease the performance of a locomotive. Well, at least they didn't convert it to burn oil like 2100. Anyway.
Oh, remember that terrible MS Paint picture I made of 1187 under ownership of Thomas Paine?
No, don't mention that.
Oh my god, that was hilarious.
Anyway.
That was fucking hilarious.
But yeah. On top of all that, because of those the decrease in coal quality for the locomotive, it really didn't have the steaming capabilities to go, of course, on the main track that they would use. And so, because exactly 6 weeks later, reference to Steven's video, it was put back into yard duties again, and helped with the runarounds at the station. But one last thing did happen with the 1187 before it was put out of service. It got to haul a Baltimore chapter special, in which the 1187 was tasked with hauling the train back. But sadly, this was the locomotive's last revenue run. And then it was moved into the roundhouse under its own steam for the last time. And, well, it spent roughly about 40 years out in the Strasburg's yard on display, where it was thought to never turn a wheel again. Even though they, occasionally moved it around, the locomotive was deemed to never be restored to operation again, because the problems that plagued it before would most likely happen again. And of course, because camelbacks nowadays seem to be illegal. But the locomotive in mid-2020 was bought by the Age of Steam Roundhouse and was moved there, of course, to be cosmetically restored back to its original Reading livery. And I actually got an update from them about a month ago. And they said the locomotive is now currently inside and is now one of their main priorities of getting back to its original livery. So most likely, it's probably never going to move under its own power again. But either way, this locomotive's future is looking a lot brighter in 2020. And let's tip our
643, first time.
But anyway, let us fellows tip our hats to the last camelback in service. And now, number 3. This everyone should expect this one.
Number 3. Western 1218.
Nope, it's not.
You want a haircut?
No.
Oh god. Is there an engine that I can talk about that's my favorite?
Number 3 is LNER number 4472.
Flying Scotsman.
Oh, yes, the Flying Scotsman.
The most famous steam engine.
Also known as
the world.
Also known as
the world's most famous steam engine.
The world's favorite steam engine.
When it was in America with the headlight and the cowcatcher.
We'll get to that in a little while.
Well,
I think it's best if you leave this to me, and I'll try to make it as short as possible.
Well, I need to be right back because my mother came in and I need to answer her question. So you guys can take care of Flying Scotsman, right?
All right.
I'll take care of Flying Scotsman. Let's see who has joined us now. Oh, it's the author again.
Yeah.
But anyway, Flying Scotsman. Initially, it was built as Great Northern, number 1472. It didn't become London and Northeastern 4472 until the Great Northern got absorbed into the London and Northeastern during the Big Four grouping of 1923. Like I said, initially it was built as a Grizzly A1. Then in 1946 or so, it was actually rebuilt to the design specifications of Grizzly's A3 Pacifics, which were actually a little bit bigger. Over the years, Scotsman has actually claimed several records, and it actually gained its name when it was on display during the British Empire exhibition in 1924 at Wembley. And they needed to name it, so they decided to call it Flying Scotsman, naming it after a racehorse, like other A3 Pacifics, or other A1 Pacifics rather at the time, but also they named it after the LNER's Top Link Express passenger train between Edinburgh and Aberdeen. And it was a stroke of public relations genius. Let's be fair here. And
Yeah,
speaking
true.
of the Flying Scotsman service, in 1928, it would actually get the chance to hold the Flying Scotsman service non-stop for the very first time. This was a distance of 392 miles we're talking about. You may be thinking, British Pacific couldn't do that. Well, it could. Granted, you have to be a little bit careful when it comes to coal consumption, but when it comes to crew changes and water stops, that was all done on the get-go. You didn't have to stop. There were water troughs or track pans along the track. The tender, though having a reduced water tank for a reason that we'll get into, was fitted with water scoops so it could pick up water on the move. And when it comes to crew changes, which is arguably the biggest factor, because, human endurance is actually quite a critical thing with this, especially seeing how the trip took 8 hours. Scotsman was actually the first locomotive to be fitted, I believe, with a corridor tender. So that allowed basically a fresh engineer or engine driver and a fireman to walk from the first passenger carriage through the tender into the cab of the locomotive and relieve the crew that was already there. Crew changes on the move accomplished.
What was Scotsman's next thing?
In 1929, they got to star in its own movie.
And at one point,
Then again, it was just a simple little thing about an engine driver who was about to retire, working on his last day and getting to drive Scotsman, though a begruntled fireman was out to get revenge on him because that engine driver had actually reported the fireman for drinking on the job, and he was out to steal the Scotsman. But at the end of the day, everything was okay, yada, yada, yada. Who cares about the basic plot? We all wanted to see the locomotive. And then in 1934, here's another topic that could start a civil war between rail enthusiasts, Scotsman reached the first authentic 100 miles an hour in a steam locomotive. People could say, oh no, City of Truro did it first. GWR number 3717. And then there are Americans who are saying that Milwaukee Road number 6402, which I believe was a 464 Hudson or Baltic, did it first. And then there are people who say that New York Central 999 did it first. Well, that's about how much that bogus claim is worth. 999 Canadian dollars, not even US dollars. We wanted to make that bogus claim as cheap as possible when it comes to 999 being the first engine to run 100 miles an hour. I refuse to believe it. So really, when it comes to who got 100 miles an hour first, I think, there are two main. It's believed that Scotsman was the first to reach an authentic 100 miles an hour. But when it comes to the big competition, I would say, you'd only have 6402 to look at, even though that engine hasn't been preserved.
Yeah.
But yeah. Then in wartime service, sadly the spotlight moved on. Eventually it became London and Northeastern number 502, I believe shortly after its rebuilt into an A3. Then it became LNER 103 before becoming E103 during British Railways days starting in 1948, before being renumbered to 60103 when 60,000 was added to the road numbers of all the London and Northeastern steam locomotives that were under British Rail ownership. Eventually, Scotsman was retired at the end of 1962, and British Rail sadly made an announcement that it was going to be sent to the breakers yard. But before they retired it, thankfully, businessman and former RAF pilot Alan Pegler bought the locomotive for the scrap value, £3,000. So, yeah, and he set to work to basically refurbishing it as closely to LNER condition, so it became number 4472 again, but it did remain in Gresley A3 standards, not a Gresley A1 standard. And
which I find okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's close enough.
No,
And
may I just?
he used the locomotive for a few rail tours on the main line, and then he also used. And when British Rail established a steam band in 1968, he thought sold it. I'm going to take it to America, which he did, and he toured the United States and Canada at the slight cost of making the locomotive look a bit hideous.
Yeah.
And during the second trip, he
amazing with the fucking cow catcher and the high intensity headlight. Fight me.
I don't like I think the headlight made the engine look a bit too tall, and I hate the placement of the bell.
Okay, purist.
And
Not ridiculous.
when it comes to the
way
cow
was.
catcher, that would have looked great if they actually got rid of the bump.
Simba, shut up!
So there's that. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah,
But
and
moving right along. Scotsman's first trip in the States was a great success. Then came its second trip, which wasn't a great success because it actually called Pegler into bankruptcy. So he actually had to leave the locomotive behind while he got home. But then sometime later, I think,
William McAlpine?
Yes, Sir William McAlpine actually bought the locomotive instead, and had it shipped home through the Panama Canal, had it refurbished at Darlington Works, I believe, or Derby. I can't remember which one of the two. And then he used the locomotive for some running trials on the
Australia.
No, not Australia. First, he actually used it first on the Dark Valley Railway for running trials. Then he took it to Australia in the late 80s to participate in the bicentenary of Australia, or 200th anniversary. But the plan was actually to have Mallard go there, but Mallard was already occupied with a short excursion career for the 50th anniversary of its world record. So Scotsman was selected instead as a very worthy substitute.
And it even got to visit Pendennis Castle.
Yeah, it met up with not the building, but it met up with an old rival, yes. GWR 4079, Pendennis Castle. So, yeah. And, but beyond that, following that, the engine was bought by
Tony Marchington?
Yeah, Dr. Tony Marchington. And under his ownership, the locomotive got a rather controversial rebuild and upgrade, between quotes, because some say that he actually ruined the locomotive.
Yeah, but
mechanically speaking, at least, because the engineers that he had the locomotive rebuild weren't necessarily experienced in railroading, from what I heard, or working with steam engine. So there's that. But that's nothing compared to the controversial appearance that the locomotive had, because it was outshot with as number 4472 in LNER apple green, but ignoring the color, it was actually in British Rail condition with its German deflectors and Keelchap exhaust system and the twin smokestack.
Which actually became a Lego set.
Yeah, to some degree, the Emerald Knight.
Yes.
I mean, Marchington's upgrade of Scotsman was actually the inspiration for that.
Yes.
But many people really did, many people who were big enthusiasts of the LNER, they didn't like Scotsman in this appearance because they hate German deflectors, or they thought that they thought it looked terrible, or they thought they thought that he needed to at least make the locomotive at least had it painted in a historically accurate livery, which in that case would have been BR 60103 for British Rail. So that actually happened under the ownership of the next owner, the National Railway Museum in York, which finally bought the damn thing in 2004. And then in 2006, I believe, they actually set to work with its biggest and most extensive refurbishment ever, which was so extreme that even a third of the locomotive's frame had to be replaced. Like,
Whoa.
The locomotive had plate frames, and like they actually had to cut the first third of those plates off and very cleverly replace it with brand new sections, because by that point they had just rotten through. Like right now, it's November of 2020. Scotsman was built in February of 2023. The locomotive is approaching 98 years old. So yeah, there's that to consider. And by the time that it had entered the NRM's workshop for that huge overhaul, which cost £4.2 million, or about $10 million US, that
Jeez.
by that time, in mechanical condition, the locomotive was kind of atrocious. So it definitely needed a brand new lease on life. And thankfully, it got that. But unfortunately, it also has come with its fair share of idiot foamers who get way too close to the tracks or accident or trespass just to get the perfect shot. We sympathize.
Yes.
It's actually so serious that, Network Rail, I believe, which is a company that kind of owns and maintains all the mainline trackage in the United Kingdom, is actually considering banning Scotsman from certain portions of the network just to keep, those trespassers away and to prevent any kinds of bad circumstances like massive delays or, worse, deaths.
Jeez.
Put it back in its LNER livery for its 100th birthday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sadly, I don't think that's going to happen, Stephen, because the NRM is all about historical accuracy, and if they want to paint it back in LNER apple green,
I said that's exactly in its original appearance, like that, basically.
as I was saying, if they are going to do it, they also have to do a metric shit ton of mechanical modifications to actually increase its performance. As in, ditch the deflectors and ditch the keel chap exhaust in favor of the single stack.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to do that.
Oh, but it's okay for White Pass and Yukon 190 to operate in a not historically accurate paid scheme for its 75th birthday?
Wait, are you talking about Strasbourg 90?
No, White Pass and Yukon 190.
Don't know. I never really heard of that locomotive.
It's the Tweety 190.
Well, we got 2 locomotives left. And holy...
There's one that we actually have to gloss over real quick because we've talked about it several times before.
What is it?
I mean, you said that it was NNW 1218, right?
Yes, Norfolk and Western 1218 is the number 2, obviously.
Oh my god. Wow, it's literally... So it's in the same spot as my retired steamers list, huh?
Sort of. Because I have found a different Soul Survivor, which I feel like needs a little bit more praise.
Who?
Well, I guess you'll find out. After these honorable mentions, Norfolk and Western 611...
Huh? But we didn't really talk about the 1218, but then again, we don't really have to talk about it.
Yeah, we've basically talked about the 1218.
You get the drill by now.
Yeah.
You all get it. But now on to honorable mentions. Norfolk and Western 611, my favorite 484. Pennsylvania Railroad 1223 and 7002, the 2 Strasbourg Pennsylvania Railroad engines. Shoe Line 1003, the 282 Mikado for the Shoe Line.
2719, Sioux Line 2719?
No, 2719 has another. No, 2719 has another surviving sister, so that doesn't count.
Okay.
Chesapeake and Ohio 614.
Yes.
Because I like that Greenbrier so much with passion. Let's see.
Here's one. Here's another Soul Survivor. East Tennessee and Western North Carolina, number 12, aka Tweety Railroad, number 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good one.
How about LDR 4471, Green Arrow?
No.
4771.
Oh, well, let's see.
Also, are there actually surviving siblings of the V2s, or is it actually a sole survivor?
No, Green Arrow is a sole survivor, but I didn't put it on the list, so
Yeah. So
Any
let's
more?
see what.
Oh yeah, Santa Fe 9040. I mean 940.
Let's see.
Yes.
Canadian National 7312. Let's see.
7312 isn't a sole survivor.
Oh, I thought it was because it was only 060.
No.
There are who
the
knows how many.
09A, I believe.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, I know. Atlanta and West Point 290.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Cotton Belt 819.
got Nigel.
That's a good one.
Louisville and Nashville 152.
Yes.
Let's see what else. How about let's see. Spokane, Portland, and Seattle 700.
I guess.
It's a 484 Northern.
I've never heard of it. Yeah.
All right, I'll go for that one.
Wait, is City of Truro a sole survivor?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, and that would also land on a retired team excursion star list if I were ever to make one, which I am considering making one.
Let's see. Central CNJ 113.
Yes, definitely.
Baltimore, Ohio 4500.
Yes.
Oh wait. What about Owens Bonerfield? You should have said that.
Oh yeah, Baltimore,
5300.
Ohio
5300.
300.
5300.
5300, President Washington.
Yes, but what about Boston and Maine 3713?
Constitution, yes, that's also a sole survivor.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yep.
Let's see. Grand Trunk Western 4070.
That's for me. I know little about that look, and I think it's a little bit overrated when it comes to retired team excursion stars lists.
Same.
Let's see. Southern 4501. Wouldn't it be Southern 1401?
Okay.
I don't really like 1401 that much.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm sorry.
I would have said 1309, but it's not even a sole survivor.
Yeah, those are
1308, I believe, somewhere on a part display somewhere else.
Let's see. How about New Hope and Ivy Land number 40?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Great Western Railway number 60 and 90.
Why both 60 and 90? Are they individual locomotives or are they sisters?
Individuals.
Okay.
280 and 210.
I'll go for them. I like those engines.
Okay.
Let's see. Arcade and Attica 18. And what about are there any other UK sole survivors, Jim, that you can think of?
Midland 1000, for example. You know, that compound 440.
Yes.
What about Black Fives?
I think we got all the sole surviving mentioned.
Yeah. But anyway, oh yeah, one more. Southern Pacific 4460.
Why? That's not on the list. Why? Come on. That's a great locomotive.
Yes. Now, Andrew, I'm gonna steal this quote from Jim, but what trumped 1218 on this list?
Well, somebody put on.
You don't have permission to copy that.
So, do any of you guys have some music that some whistling Western music?
Wait. Oh no! Don't tell me that number one is Movie Star, is it?
Nope, it's not a movie star.
Oh.
Oof. Did that close the Sierra Free out of the list?
Oh my god! Is it a certain train that a pedophile likes?
Nope.
Really?
Nope, it is not actually.
Well, thank God. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Well, somebody put on the song. No, we already mentioned
Daylight?
the daylight. We already mentioned the daylight. That was number 20.
Oh. Well, I probably wasn't here in the beginning for that.
Let's see. Like, what's the
Hang on,
music do you
wait a
want?
minute.
Like some West.
475?
No, that's not Soul Survivor.
Oh my god, this is our longest episode. It's actually trumped the overrated Steam Stars list now.
I'm trying to.
Whoa.
There's so many engines going through my head.
Yeah.
It's a
So
tough
you're
one.
saying that we're over the 2-hour mark now.
Yes, we are actually.
But we're gonna still keep it going until we reveal number one.
Yes.
Well, what's number one?
That's
Well,
what I'm
I
tracking.
still need you guys to put on that song.
Which one? Like
We need like some whistling Western theme.
Hold on.
Western.
Like some Western.
Prepare for copyright stuff, lol. For a few dollars more.
There you go.
There.
By the way, rest in peace, Ennio Morricone. Italian music composer for many spaghetti westerns. He died this year too.
Number 1. Berm Steam Tram Locomotive, number 12.
Southern 12.
Berm. No,
How
Berm.
did I not think of
Did
that?
you hear that? Berm Steam Tram Locomotive, number 12.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Closely.
I did.
Berm.
Very
Is
clear.
it that 280 with the big number 12
No,
number
it's
plate?
nope. It's a steam tram.
Oh,
It's a steam.
I think-
Is it an American steam tram or is it another steam tram from another country?
It's a
Burn?
yes, Burn Steam Tram.
Is it American? I'm at
No, it looks European.
Yes, it is not American.
what country? What country?
The
Switzerland.
yes,
Lighting sound effect here because I know nothing about Swiss locomotive.
But anyway, let me tell you guys the history of this very interesting design. Number 12 was built as a 060T SLM class trolley. Well, not trolley, tram locomotive. Built in 1894. It was one of 8 locomotives built by the SLM in, of course, 1894. After the tram network was certified in 1902, they kept these locomotives until 1908, before ending up using them in industrial service at the Renfrew sawmill, where basically they, of course, used them as logging locomotives for a while. So they used that. They were logging locomotives until 1943. And when number 12 was stored for preservation in Zurich until 1959, when it was put on for display in winter in 1972, it went to Bologna Chambi Museum Railway Museum. Chambi Railway Museum before returning to Winter in 1983, where it was put on display in Tech-Orama in 1994.
Is it going to hurry up and get restored to operation yet?
In 1994, it returned to Bern and was restored to full operational condition. And between 1995 and 2002, since it has been in regular use on the Bern Mobile Tram Network, well, this locomotive has been in service ever since, hauling excursions on part of the tramway.
Wow.
It is one of very few examples of full steam operated tram engines left in the world. And so, with its sole survivor status, its age, and its overall appearance, that made this locomotive my number 1 on my top 20 sole surviving steam locomotives from the
That's a
world.
great choice.
However, unfortunately, it seems like the only thing that people think of when they think of tram engines is
Fucking the J70. But anyway, that's really why it's on this list. This locomotive, in particular, feel like this needs more recognition. It's a tram engine that's still operating in the preservation era, that's still moving under steam. No electricity, just steam. So, I mean, the only steam tram engine most people know about is, of course, the ill-fated Toby, which doesn't exist anymore, even though they were kind of good. And they were the first tank engines to ever be fitted with Walschaerts valve gear. But anyway, these tram engines, of course, the eight that were produced were reliable in service, and one is still reliable today. And we should be thankful that this engine is even operating at all throughout its crazy 130-year career.
Yeah, bless those people who restored that.
Yeah.
It's just like such a jewel.
Yes. I mean, most people would think of restoring just a normal steam locomotive, but this is where it's at. You need something that will definitely catch your eye thinking, what is that? And that's where this locomotive will come in and snap people into thinking that this is otherworldly. This is old time. This is an excursion. That's what this locomotive is doing on this list. So,
and the special thing about it is, it's a tram engine. Some people do like tram engines. It's still running on steam, and that's part of like the great way it is today.
Yeah, but either way, what did you guys think of number one?
Well, that's a great choice.
I kind of like it, but I didn't even expect that one to come on the list. I was expecting I really wanted the 611 on the list because of my favorite 44 Northern and the Soul Survivor.
It is a Soul Survivor. That's why we put in honorable mentions. But there was no way that any of these locomotives could have topped how unique this locomotive in particular was. And still is, of course.
I mean, yeah, it's still around today.
Yeah. Either way, are there any final thoughts before I end the stream?
Actually, I have one. Type in if for those who are watching this video after it's already been published on YouTube, after it's live and all that stuff. Comment K94 if you want to see somebody try to build a real Rio Grande K94 consolidation.
Steven, we all hate you.
Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more streams.
You love me. You love me for that. You love that concept, don't you?
You
Please tell me you're not gay.
I'm okay.
No, I'm not gay. Why?
Because you didn't say no homo.
But anyway, that was
we know you get the joke, but still though.
Another Blue Mine and Eastern excursion is going to be taking place.
But anyway,
You heard that?
yeah, I heard. But anyway, we will see you guys next week, where the episode is a bit of a surprise.
Oh.
But anyway, we will see you guys in the next episode, where as I said, it's gonna be a surprise. But let's put her up, and we will see you guys next week.
And happy Thanksgiving.